she's been a bitch tonight. And by bitch, I mean Miss Rain.
Queer bashing to me is it's a form of bullying, basically.
So I had to put on the wigs and the heels and the lashes and the ear and take the train to the club.
It's obviously something that's homophobic and like kind of mentally or physically abusing someone because of their sexuality.
So then I get to the club looking like a drowned, harassed rat and am greeted not by Miss Rose at the door.
I think it's making fun of someone for their sexuality.
Yeah, I think slagging someone because of their sexual orientation.
And not accepting them for who they are.
So no fee for me. I don't even know what's the key. So I hope you're up, girl, because we are all coming over. Lock the doors, lower the blinds, fire up the smoke machine, and put on your heels, because I know exactly what we need.
Let's have a kiki.
I want to have a kiki.
Lock the doors. Right. Let's have a kiki.
Queerbash is an event run by UL LGBT Society out in UL. The event is now in its 15th year running and is going from strength to strength. The majority of Irish people these days don't know the first thing about the term queerbashing, and for many, the phrase brings to mind images of violence and hatred. Ireland's Catholic heritage grounds us historically in an anti-LGBT culture. 2/3 of the LGBT community in Ireland have said that they feel or have felt unsafe showing affection in public, whilst 85% said that they would never feel comfortable enough to outwardly display affection to a partner. However, with our nation becoming ever more open and welcoming, the term queer has begun to be reclaimed, and the concept of queerbash and queerbashing have turned a corner, now being used as a term of empowerment.
The term queerbashing to me isn't a positive term. It's a term that's quite aggressive, it's violent. To bash something is to injure it. And I think the word queer can be, it can be used as a term of empowerment, but I think it can be quite offensive to people. So I would see it as an aspect of homophobic aggression.
I suppose largely it has a huge number of negative connotations. So, you would think about violence, patriarchy, heteropatriarchy, toxic masculinity, toxic femininity, misogyny, internalized misogyny, performances of violence, performative violence, performative speech acts, ignorance, intolerance. All of those kind of things will come to mind, but I suppose it's a term and it's a phrase that we can now look to try and reclaim in the way.
Well, for me it would be positive because I teach media studies, so you have the whole idea of queer theory, and it's one of those words that I suppose have been readopted by people who were labelled that. And initially, when I was younger, it would have been seen as like a derogatory term like Nancy or Puff or whatever. But even the term gay and the term queer now seem to have like a sense of pride about them, and they've been recuperated and used in a better, more positive fashion. Yeah, so I would see queer as being a positive thing. Yeah.
As a term in itself, one person pointed out recently, which I never thought of, that bash also means party, which I think is just brilliant because that never clicked with me. And I think it is that whole reclaiming of terms, like even the word queer in itself, up until a few years ago, we would stay away from that. And a lot of people still do, and you kind of need to acknowledge that too, but it's just that thing of if we hold this word to such power as such a positive thing, nobody can take that from us and make it a negative thing again.
It's kind of almost like taking back the word, reclaiming it, to make it a celebration of what our community is, rather than what most people would automatically say, that it's horrible as a slur.
After going to so many Queerbash events, it's just reclaiming the word, and I think that's exactly what they want. And for me, it worked. I'm so comfortable saying queer, and I actually prefer saying it now because you're not worried about the negative connotations of it anymore. It's no, it's I'm really comfortable saying queer, and I'm really comfortable identifying as queer, and I think that's kind of the goal here.
Since Queerbash started 15 years ago, it has grown in popularity amongst the queer community in Limerick. Queer people look forward to the event more and more each year as the different theme adds to the anticipation and excitement for the night.
Queerbash was founded by a guy called Paddy McHugh. He's kind of one of the big heads in UL. He worked on the outdoor pursuits. He founded Queerbash. He founded out in UL as a whole. He founded a lot of things in UL clubs and societies. He was also worked as one of the sabbatical officers for a few years, and unfortunately he passed away from cancer a few years ago. So Queerbash has always been a thing that we'd always been kind of popping. It was always a thing that was just like, hey, this is a big event, there's a gap for this, let's go with it. And it just, like a lot of things we have, it kind of became a staple event. And then after Paddy died, it was a big thing in UL, it was a huge loss. So they've named the Freshers Award at the Clubs and Societies Ball after him. So we were like, right, we can't really get rid of this event, like it's in his memory. And his whole thing was basically, he wanted to find a way to bring the queer and the straight community together. Because this was, it was 15 years ago. Ireland was not as friendly a place. And it was a lot better than it could have been, but in a university setting, like there was a huge gap. And the fact that there was no LGBTQ society was, not great. So he was like, right, we've got the society, how do we make it even bigger?
For me, I guess it's really a sense of community. It's when I joined out in UL, I made a lot of new friends, and it's just kind of doing something together, all together.
I came out last July, and a lot of people that are here tonight helped me in that, and it's a chance to kind of finally be me, I suppose. Don't have to hide anything in there.
It's kind of like a privilege to run this event. Like this is Queerbash 15 now, so it's been running for 15 years. It's one of UL's longest running events. And so really it is like, it's very prestigious to be able to say I ran a Queerbash.
So this event for me, I used to be on Out in UL committee for 4 semesters in a row. So this is my 3rd Queerbash that I'm going to, but it's the only one so far that I haven't actually had a hand in terms of organising and stuff. So it's kind of exciting for me to come along to just kind of go for the enjoyment of it. Every year, like once we start back in college and we start going back to Out in UL meetings, it's pretty much from the first Out in UL meeting that we're all starting to talk about Queerbash again, as in from like a committee standpoint, it was like, something that we open up to our members as like a pull to get them to join in the first place. So there's already a buzz like months ahead of time and already thinking about like what can we do to make it bigger and better.
Queerbash Space Theme actually came about at the day of Queerbash last year. One of our old co-presidents and one of the people who performed this year, Sarah Hogan, actually just randomly came up with it while we were talking. We were kind of like, it's Queerbash 15, it's 15 years of this, it has to be something big, it has to be something out of this world. So we kind of just went, sure, we'll go with that. That's a great theme to go with.
I would say from a personal level, growing up with the references I did, again, kind of villains and sci-fi and that sort of movies, I'm a big Star Wars person. I am very just personally fond of space, especially because it gives you a lot of opportunity to do things with lights and kind of things. The theme last year was fantasy and fiction, if I believe correctly, which is a very broad theme. You could kind of go in as anything. You could have kind of gone as a space character for fantasy and fiction if you wanted to. So I think from that standpoint, the space theme is a little bit stronger because it gives you more of a reference.
Well, I mean, the main pull of this event for me is that it is, like, aside from Limerick Pride, it's the biggest queer night of the year in Limerick,
Queerbash for me is kind of, not only is it a great night out, but it's kind of one of the most accepting nights out. It's one of the biggest LGBT nights in Limerick, and it's kind of the kind of night where, it brings straight people, LGBT people all together just for a fun time, but kind of in a safe atmosphere where everyone kind of feels like, just have a good time. But just feel like you're in the right family or in the right group and just party.
I've been to 4 Queer Bashes and I've performed at 2. This is my 4th one. So yeah, it's been different every year. You can see the variations in different years. So when I came, like first time I was here, wasn't that many people here, so there wasn't, but as the years went on, then I see more people coming in, more and more and more. And that's what I like to see, because Out in UL have done such a good job and they're just an amazing society in UL, and I to be honest, I don't think they're given half the credit that they should be given, because they create this amazing safe zone. Because kids are coming into college and they're out on their own. They don't know left or right. They're making their own dinners, they're doing their own laundry, they don't know it. And then when stuff is getting hard and trying to come out, that's even harder. And out in UL are like, come here, give us a hug, come here, and we'll take care of you, that's no problem. And I just find that amazing. They're just so amazing and I feel so safe around them.
Well, I remember my first Queer Bash, I wasn't even a member of Out in UL, I didn't go to UL, I was completely in the closet. And a friend of mine just said, hey, let's go to Queer Bash. And I was like, oh God, what does that mean? So she brought me along and I didn't even meet that many people, but just by knowing, that was my first time ever being in a room with people like me. Like I came from a really small town in Tipperary. There was nobody else that I could really speak to about it who could properly understand, but I'll never forget that feeling of actually being in a room with people who I didn't even know their names, but I knew that they were like me. And it was a very special feeling, so I hope that we can continue to give that to other people.
Queer Bosh for me, it was the first queer event that I went to. You know, I didn't go to Pride or anything. Sorry. I didn't have these opportunities when I was a teenager. I wasn't out. My family didn't know, my boyfriend at the time didn't know, none of my friends knew, so Queer Bosh was just such a door for me. And I'm just really grateful.
Queerbash holds a special place in the hearts of the queer community in Limerick. For 15 years, Queerbash has provided a safe space for queer people to express themselves without worrying about homophobia. So what does the future hold for Queerbash?
In terms of the event getting bigger itself, I think it is getting bigger every year. I think every event that Out in UL is putting on is getting bigger every year. I think AMUL is getting bigger. I think their workshops are getting bigger. I think engagement with Out in UL on the whole is getting bigger. And the reason that is because it is serving a niche that no one else is serving. As I said, there is no big queer events. There's people in here that are probably fucking 32. What are they doing in a student event? They have nowhere else to go. That's the reality. And so in terms of getting bigger, I see absolutely no reason that the whole of Out in UL's range of events can't get bigger.
I suppose if I had, like, you know, boundless resources, obviously I'd love to take it to a kind of, I won't say like a higher plane, because like I'm pretty proud of what we're doing now, but like there's so many brilliant performers that I would love to give a chance to on our stage. Like that's kind of what we do with Queer Bosh, is we like to showcase local talent, but at the same time I would also love the opportunity to showcase like national talent. I think that would be brilliant, and I think it would really put Queer Bosh on the map as well.
I think Queer Bosh is getting bigger and bigger every year. So every year more and more people are hearing about it. It's becoming more and more, like it's almost as much of a kind of household name in the Limerick community as Pride is. More and more people are hearing about it, more people are anticipating it. And I think it can only get bigger and better, bigger acts, bigger venues, just the sky's the limit.
You know, I'd love to see more stuff going on in Limerick, and I'd like to think that more stuff will be going on in Limerick a few years down the line. But I think Queer Bosh will always be kind of like the heart of, like, you know, queer spaces in Limerick.
So end goal is, if we can make it bigger, if there's a possibility of making it bigger than Dublin's, great. If there's a possibility of, like, in the future incorporating other societies, incorporating other queer groups around Limerick. We're very lucky we've got Limerick Pride, which has helped out a lot with us, but just again making it bigger in terms of if we can get bigger acts, if we can get like more funding for ourselves to like add things to it, because there's a lot of, like, you know, there's no point in saying that, oh yeah, like it's as big as it can get. Like, we want, if we can get like the likes of Paul Ryder, a huge drag queen, down, we would have, but like we couldn't because we can't afford it. Like, we are a very small college society, and this is one event out of like the 20 we do across the year. So it's kind of a case of, if we can fund ourselves more, we want to make it bigger by any way we possibly can, whether it's more decorations, whether it's better lighting and stuff, or more lighting, or whatever else it can be. But I think the end goal is that there isn't an end, essentially.
change us. Whatever God you believe in, we come from the same one. Strip away the fear, underneath it's all the same love. About time that we raised up.
I can't change